Hello, this is David Musgrave from Winthrop Development Consultants. Welcome to a GP Power Tools feature demonstration. Today we're covering adding a custom field using Modifier, Report Writer and GP Power Tools Developer Tools module. Here is a summary of the features and benefits covered in this demonstration. Using GP Power Tools for customizations has a number of benefits, including no external tools or licenses are needed. The development cycle is faster with no need to restart GP or deploy chunk files or add in DLL files. You can mix and match languages, including Dexterity, Transat SQL, C# and VB.NET. There are no additional steps for deployment at each workstation, and upgrades are just a matter of testing the customizations after the upgrade. The areas we'll be covering are an introduction, how to modify the window, how to save the data using scripts, how to use the data that we've saved with some additional scripts, how to create a report writer function, modifying the report to use the report writer function, and then publishing the final project. Let's jump into the demonstration and show you what it's all about. So we've now logged on to Microsoft Dynamics GP. Our business requirement is to add a new field to the item maintenance window. We're going to add a URL field at the bottom of the window which will allow us to enter a URL, and we'll have a zoom button which will open the URL in a browser. We're going to add these fields using Modifier and then use GP Power Tools to add the scripts to make it all work. Let's get started. First thing we need to do is modify the window, so we go to Tools, Customize, Modify Current Window, and that'll open the window in the modifier. So now I'm going to go to Local Fields, and I'm going to add a new local field called URL of type string, keyable length 100. Clicking in the list and then typing my characters, I can jump straight down to URL. Now I need to make some space here, so what I need to do is make the window a little bit bigger. I want to fit my field just above tax commodity code, so you just click anywhere on the window to select the window, and you'll see that the current height is 417, and I want to add one grid to it, which is 19 pixels, which will make it 436. So now I'm going to select all of the fields below and move them down one grid. So you want to make sure you fully surround them, including the horizontal lines, and then you can pick them all up and move them down. So now I can drop my URL field in. I'm going to use the tax commodity code field to help me align it, so I'm going to move it arranged to the left edge. I'm going to move it down. Now I click away and I can just pick up the one field and move it up. You'll notice it's a little bit long, so I'm going to click on the field and use Control left arrow to shorten it 1 pixel at a time. 4 pixels it's shorter, and we're done. So I'm now going to get my prompt tool and add some static text. I'm going to put web URL link, press tab, and now I'm going to use tax commodity code to make sure it's the right size. So align it to the left and align it to the widest. Now it's not quite lined up with the field here, so I'm going to actually move it down one using the align to bottom, so now it's in the right position. So to give it the underline, we need to change our borders to true and our appearance to 3D highlight. We now need to do the last couple of steps when you add a field, which is to link the prompt, and you go from the field to the prompt and set the tab sequence. So as you tab through, if it goes somewhere where you don't want it, double click to where you do want it. So it goes to tax commodity code, I want it on the URL, and then if I press tab, so that's fixed now, and I'm completed with that step. The next step is going to be to add a zoom button. So let's go back to local fields and click on new and create a zoom button type push button, I'm going to add some static text for zoom, and OK, and type in zoom, and there's the field. So I'm just going to drop it here for now. First thing I need to do is this web URL link, I want to make it zoom equals true, which will give it the hyperlink appearance. Then I'm going to click on the web URL and the zoom button and use the arrange tools to up, left, widest and shortest. That will size it to the correct size. I just clicked away, so nothing's selected. Click back on zoom and we can change its object property of tab stop to false and its visual properties of zoom to true, which gives it the hand logo or icon when the mouse is over the top of it, and the final thing is to say visible false. And now we can't see it anymore, but it is actually there. If you did want to see it, you can go up to show invisible fields, and now you'll see it, and you can hide those again. So let's go back to GP. I'm going to close the window and save the layout changes. Click OK, go up to File and select GP, and we're now back in GP. If we go back to inventory and open the window, at this stage we won't see any changes because we haven't told security what to do. So I'm going to close this, and then we'll go to, and we're going to use GP Power Tools to temporarily allow us to change which window we see. If we go down to Setup and Dynamic Product Selection, put in your system password if you've got one, and I'm going to use existing IDs. Now I know that my current users are using the default ID for the alternate modified ID, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to say in inventory I'll find item maintenance. So you'll see I've got a few different versions of item maintenance here. There's the modified version. So if I click and say activate this feature for item maintenance and click on it, you'll see now I can choose of which choices I want to be offered. I'm going to choose the first two, the original or the modified, and then I'm going to click on the users button and actually say make this only for SA, which is the user I'm using to develop in. So this means that this choice of which window to use is currently only going to be offered to SA. So now if we go back to inventory and click on cards, I'll now get a choice of which version, and if I say B, you'll see that the web URL link field is here. The hyperlink is working as far as the button's concerned, but there's no code in here to actually make this function yet. So now we're ready for the next step. So we've now completed the changes to the window. We probably need to get an idea of how the window works. So what I'm going to do is use GP Power Tools and say start logging. And I'm going to retrieve a record and then save a record. And then I can say stop logging. I'm not going to email the logs. And I'm going to go look at those logs in a second. We'll just close this window. We'll go to GP Power Tools, and under Cards we'll go to Project Setup. We're going to create our new project, which is going to be the Item URL project, and we're going to call it Add Web URL Link Field to Item Maintenance window. I'm going to set this as my current project, and I'm going to press Ctrl S, which is the same as selecting Save and Continue. Alright, now I'm going to use the hyperlink here, which will open to my logging path, and I can see the logs, and I'm interested primarily in the script log, and this is the log that we would have captured just now, and it is going to tell me that when a window is loaded, it's going to run the display existing record change script. So that is a field change script, and that's the point where I'm going to be needing to trigger on to display my data. When you hit save, it will run the save record script, and it's normally actually save records. There's a typo there. That'll be the script that it runs, and so that's the field that I'm going to be running to make sure I save my data. So now that I've finished with the logging, I can close those, and we'll come back to our window. So we're back in project setup. Let's select to add a trigger, and this trigger we're going to call it item URL save, and it is going to have the description of save web URL link from item maintenance window. I'm going to set the trigger to start automatically, but I don't want it to do any logging, so it will be don't activate the logging, and I only want to see problems, log entries if there's errors, so I'll be minimizing the log entries. The type is going to be a focus event, and it's going to be running on a field change event, and we'll run it after the original event has occurred. So I can now use the menu explorer and look it up. So we're going into the cards, inventory, item maintenance, into the main window, and I am looking for the save record script. So that's the save record field, and now I'm ready to take the next step. We're not going to run any of the actions. There's no need for any of the actions, and there's no need for any of the options other than the project ID, which has automatically been populated because we came from the project setup window. So it's the script that we need to work on now. As we're going to be working on a modified window, I want to say use modified mode, which changes the script, and I also want it to check security so that the script only runs when the modified window is in use. So we're not going to be looking for empty save record. What we want to know is if save record is true, which means the record was successfully saved. So I'm just going to, we can actually make this a bit wider. I'm going to just look for that field being saved, and if it's not saved, I think what we'll do is we will go no further, because if it hasn't been saved, we don't need to save our data, so we shall say abort script. Alright, so let's just tidy this up a little. Okay, so what do we do if we are ready to save? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to use a helper function which will allow us to save the data in the duos. The duos is the dynamic user object store, and is actually the SY90000 table in the company database. So we'll say set a duos property, and OK, and it adds in some code for us. So let's just tab that code in. The ID is going to be set to the item number field, so it's telling us what the key is. So if I click on the names button and say forms, and find the inventory item maintenance window, main, and the item number. Okay, so the value that we're going to be storing is URL. Now we can't actually use the lookup here because we can use the lookup, but we can't actually find the local field because this cannot see the local field. So I'm just going to choose any other local field and then change it to URL. Okay, so then we need to change the object is, well, this is going to be an item. So this is all of the data we're storing is for items, and the property that we're storing against that item is the URL. So that is the code that we want basically the simple version of the code. I'm going to make it a little smarter because I want to know whether or not, well, I don't want to save data if there's no data to be saved, so I don't want to save a blank record. So I'm going to say if it is not empty, and I'm going to double click on property, put that on the clipboard, and Control V. Okay, so if it's not empty, save that property. Otherwise, if you're about to save it blank, let's do something else instead, and we'll add in the helper function to say delete a duos property. Okay, well, the ID field has already been set for us, so we don't need that. And we just do a bit of formatting and double click, copy and paste, copy and paste. So that way now, if there's no data to be stored, it will actually remove the record and we won't store a blank record. So that's that script finished. So the script is complete, but what we want to also do is make sure that this code is also, while we're debugging it, only runs for SA. So we've set it to only work for the SA user. So I'm now going to duplicate this script so that we can create the read event. And we'll change the wording here of the description to read web URL to the window. We come back to resources and we can reselect, and we're looking for the display existing record, and we're going to let it clear the script. Okay, again, that would have automatically copied the users and all of the other settings across for us. The only thing we need to do now is change the script, so we'll come in here and start working on the script. We could make this optional, that it only displays, only looks up the data if there was an existing record, but we can also just get rid of these lines and make it look every time. If there's no data to be displayed, then it won't show anything. Alright, so again we're going to use the helper function, and we're going to say we want to get a duos property and insert the code. Alright, so the ID field again is going to be the item maintenance, so go to names and forms, and we'll look up, the item number field on the item maintenance, and the object is going to be an item, and the property we want is the URL, and then we need to place that data into a field, so we just grab any local field and call URL, and the value is placed in property, so we'll say equals property semicolon, and that is the end of that code. So if I hit save and go back to, you'll see here we have the two scripts now sitting there that will handle both the read and the save events. The final event that we need to look after is what happens when the item is deleted. So if we say add a trigger again, and we come in here and we will add in item URL, and we'll call it del for delete, and then we'll say delete the web URL link with item master table. And we're going to start this automatically, activate, no, don't activate logging, minimize log entries, we'll do it only for the SA user. The trigger type is going to be on a table. We're going to pick up when that table has been deleted and after the table event. The table we're looking for is the item master, and we can find that under dynamics, inventory, and we'll just go into all and find the item master table, and if we want we can look up item number on that table. So we don't need any actions or options, so we go to scripts and we can see here that we have the delete event, and if it's not empty, which means it has some data, we can come in here and we can do a cleanup event. We're not running this on the modified window, so if the item is deleted on any version of the window, it will also make sure that it is deleted from here. So let's add in the helper function and say delete all duos properties. Okay, and just tab those in, and we're going to base that on the column. And delete item. And then we can click save. So let's close our window. We'll come back and let's see if we can make this work. So if we now say start and our project triggers, we should be able to look at the trigger status and see that our triggers are now running. So if we now go to cards, inventory, item, and select the modified window, let's pull up a record, and we've already got some data in here, so we can see that it's already pulled in the data. And if, let's say we add in an extra slash and hit save and come back, you'll see that it has actually saved it. So get rid of that and save again. So you can see that the window is now functional. The next step is to use the fields that we've created. We're going to make the zoom button work, and we're also going to add in some data validation on the URL field. So we'll start by adding a trigger. Because the triggers are already running, it's going to ask us if we want to unregister them, and at this stage we can say yes. So we're going to create a new trigger ID, and we'll call this one item URL field, and we're going to make this run for the current user, and the resource or the type is going to be a focus event after the field change, and we'll use the lookup to find our field. So we're going to use item maintenance. Now again, the lookups don't work for modified fields, so we'll just choose any modified, any local field. I'm going to turn on modified and change this to URL, and I'll let it clear the script. Okay, actions and options are all set, so you just need to go into scripts. We're going to place in a script from the article, there we go, which will add HTTP or HTTPS in the correct case to the URL. Now I haven't put in a description yet, so let's call this one field change web URL link on item maintenance window, and then we can press Ctrl S to save. I'm then going to use duplicate again and create our button script. Alright, so we'll come to our resource and we'll change this to zoom button and tab off, and I'll ask it to reset the code for me. Come into here. So we don't need to actually look at the zoom button, but when the zoom button's pressed, we do want to look at the URL field. And then what we'll do is we'll insert the code, standard code for launching a URL. There we go. So let's just format this a little. and hit save. And if we go back to our example, we can restart the triggers, go back up to cards and inventory item, select the modified window. Okay, so if I remove the HTTP and I press tab, you'll see that it adds it back. And if I click on the hyperlink, it'll open up a window to the GP Power Tools portal in this case. So everything is functioning as desired. To get this data to show on a report, the first thing we need to do is create a report writer function. So if we go back to our project setup, we can actually come in here and select Add Runtime Execute. So the Runtime Execute window allows us to create lots of different scripts, including ones with specific purposes. And we're going to use the table header string because we want to return a string value, and we want to return it based on only a small number of input parameters. So let's call this item URL get, and we'll say get web URL link field for report writer, and we'll come down, and where it says add our code, we'll get a helper function, and we'll use the getAdJAWS property. The ID field is going to be passed in using the MBS number. It's a type item URL, and it's returned to item property. So what we need to do is return the table header string as the item property, and that's the end of that code. And if we hit save, it's completed. Now we can actually improve on this code by using the example on the web page, where it includes the ability to pass the 100 characters into 80 character segments. So we've added in a case statement, and we're going to use the control value to decide whether we're just passing back the first 80 characters or whether we want to split it by 80 characters or pass it into lines. So I'll save the updated script. Now that we have our report writer function, the next step is to add that into a report. So if we go to cards, inventory, and item, open up the modified window, and we print the report to the screen, you'll see at the moment that the URL field is not placed on the screen, but if we modify, that'll take us to the report writer. Once in the report writer, we can add our calculated field. So we're going to create a calculated field called URL, type string. It's going to use a user-defined function in the system series, and we're looking for the RW table header string. We need to give it a constant value of 5261, being the dictionary ID of GP Power Tools. The script to run which is the item URL get script, which is the report writer function we created. We need to pass it the field from the item master. So we want the item number field. And then it has two more parameters, being the type and the control, which we'll just pass in as 0 for this example. We're not using them. So there's our calculator field. I'm going to place that onto the H1 area, drag it out. Now I'm going to create or update the header. So just grab all of these fields, and there's one more to the right, and we'll pick them all up, and we'll do the same down here. One more to the right, and pick them all up. Okay, and now we can type in our new field, web URL link, and we can copy that down to here, and if I select both of those and the field, I can then use the arrange tool and align them left and size them wide, and now we've actually finished with the report, so we can go back to Microsoft. To give us access to the report, we will use the GP Power Tools Dynamic Product Selection again, and this time we'll do it in report mode, and we'll select the report, and we'll give it both choices, and again we'll limit this currently to the SA user. So now if we go back to inventory and item, choose the modified window, you'll see that this is functioning, and then if we choose to print it and we say print the modified version to the screen using the standard report, and there you'll see web URL link, and there's the link on the window as on the report already. So that's the end of the customization. We've added it to both areas, onto the window and onto the report. To publish the report and make it available for all users, and now that everything is finished, if we go back to our project setup, we can come in here and we can double click on our triggers, go to users and remove the specific user that we added, and you can just repeat that for all of the triggers. So those triggers would now be available for all users. Then we can go to administration, into alternate forms and reports, choose your default user, change the series to inventory, window, find item maintenance and make the modified version the default, change to reports for inventory and make the modified version the default, hit save, close that, come back to GP Power Tools and disable the dynamic product selection on those two areas. So I'll come down to inventory turn off the product selection there, and reports. Detailed, and save. And now the project is published if it's on this system. If it's on a separate system, you would need to go to Customization Maintenance and export the detailed item report. Export the form. Go to your project and export the project. Then those files can be reloaded onto a target system using the customization maintenance window to import, and the configuration import export to import your package. If that is the first time you have imported it, or if it's already been imported, the project has already been imported, you could use the project setup and import it. If you're importing and there are already items, you'll see that you get the options to which ones to overwrite, and you can actually also ask it to remove any project objects that are not being imported in case you've deleted something and then you want to clean up that deleted record. Thank you for watching the demonstration. Today we covered an introduction into using GP Power Tools for customizations, using Modifier to modify the window, using scripts to save the data, using additional scripts to use the data in a useful way, creating a report writer function, using report writer to modify the report to take advantage of the report writer function, and finally how to publish the project to make it available to all users. If you want more information on GP Power Tools, please visit the portal or the Winthrop website. Thank you.